Hey, Shalonda Gordon here, also known as the Online Marketing Angel, or a single mom touched by God's grace, however you want to call it. It's a pretty good day, right? Pretty good day. I wanted to come to you to talk to you about a single mom celibacy. I've read some articles or an article about it and just want to really cover exactly what it means to be a single mom and what it means to have to practice a life of celibacy. Now, some say you said have to, and I believe it is something I must do. One reason is because I'm raising two daughters. Now, if you're a single mom and you're watching this video, you might not practice abstinence and you might not practice a lifestyle of celibacy, and you might be looking at me thinking, oh, she's tripping, right? Once the cookie jar is open, it's open. Ain't no closing it back up, right? Ultimately, we have a responsibility as mothers. We have responsibilities to ourselves, right? To respect our bodies and respect what we're showing our children. Main reason why I practice celibacy really has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with my daughters. I'm raising two daughters. My daughters have different fathers. I'm already coming out the gate, we're in a different situation because of the fact that my daughters know that they have different fathers, right? And so I'm having to definitely show them something that I didn't quite understand. Even if it was shown to me, I missed it, right? I didn't get it. And so ultimately growing up, I used sex as a way to make myself feel accepted, make myself feel better. I lost my virginity at a very young age, not very, but young. You know what I'm saying? And young enough to know I really wouldn't want my daughter losing her virginity at that age. Yet I honestly didn't know what I was giving up, what I was losing. There were conversations that weren't really had. And it wasn't because I didn't have a great mom or a great dad. It was because, other things were going on and it wasn't really the focus in our house. And I was a pretty good girl, you know what I'm saying? So it wouldn't have been something that you would have assumed. I've had friends tell me all the time. One of my homegirls just told me a couple of years back, she was like, man, that Shalonda, she was an undercover nerd. You know what I'm saying? My mom would be like, you can only go if Shalonda's going. And Shalonda was the worst one out the bunch. And so I laughed at that like that's kind of interesting because it's true. The glasses and the smile kind of got me over and I had good grades. So moms figured if their daughters were rolling with Shalonda that it was all good. Truth be told, though, I was probably the one like, yo, let's do this. You know what I'm saying? With that being said, I kind of have to watch my girls. You know what I'm saying? I'm really paying a lot of attention to it because I want them to respect their bodies. I want them to know their worth and what they're worth. And honestly, I didn't know my worth. By the time I realized what I was worth, it was kind of late. I'd already given up some things that if I'd known what I found out, I probably would have held on to, and I just didn't want my daughters having to go through that. So with that being said, some moms have this saying, well, do as I do, do as I say, not as I do. I'm a strong believer in no, do as I do. Do what I say, but also do what I do. You see what I'm saying? I'm also a believer that our children will do what we do regardless whether they see us do it or not. Okay, it's just in the blood. It can't be helped. So if you're out there kind of creeping around thinking that your child don't know it and they're not going to manifest what you're doing, you're delusional because they will. They will do what you do regardless of whether they see you do it or not. If you ever notice, I'm a single mom. One of my daughters, my youngest, my 5-year-old, she doesn't even really know her dad or anything, right? Yet I see things she does that are similar to him. But she has not around him. She's not picking this stuff up. It's in the blood. It's something she can't help. It's there, right? So ultimately, when you decide to live a life of celibacy, you decide to make a decision that, you know what? It's more important for my child to have truth and move forward in worth and strength than me getting my kicks off. Especially if you're a single mom, which means you're not married, which means you're having premarital sex, which is a whole nother issue of things. Right? That's a whole nother video, honestly, about the truth, about what happens when you're giving your body to another man, to a man who's more than likely given his body to many other women, and what that's really doing to you, your spirit, and your household, and the presences that are in your household. That's a whole nother video, though. Honestly, this one right here is just to kind of motivate single moms to understand a life of celibacy is worth it. Especially if your reasoning for it is based on your children. Now, let me explain this too. I ain't trying to make it seem like it's the easiest thing I ever did. It's easier now, but I've been walking this walk for a second. I ain't even gonna lie. In the beginning, I was like, really? Like, I've been walking this walk for quite a few years. My 5-year-old, probably like 7, 8 years. The first couple of years of it, I would be like, well, 12 months, bam. Like literally on the 12th month, at that day, I would fall and I would get it in, right? That happened. Now, I have a 5-year-old. You're like, Shalonda, you got a 5-year-old. How are you talking celibacy for 7 years? Well, here's why I say that. My brother died in a car accident, and it kind of freaked me out, and I went back to what I knew. I went back to that comfort that I understood, which was sex. By the grace of God, he gave me life instead of death, because he surely could have given me death just as easily as he gave me my baby. Okay, so just so we're clear, I had a trauma in my life, and I responded to that trauma with what I understood. I was still trying to figure out this whole celibacy thing and really walking that walk. I remember my oldest, she's 11 now, being like around 3 years old. We were in church, and one of the young ladies, the young ladies in the church that were single moms, always thought I was younger than I was. I had one come up to me. She was like, I was probably at the time about 28, and she was like 20, 21, and she was like, Shalonda, how do you do it? I was like, well, how do I do what? Well, how do you have a house and a car and job, and you take care of your kid, your daughter like this? How do you do it? I said, well, how old do you think I am? And she was like, oh, you're like my age. And I was like, Abu, no, I'm grown. I'm like 28. I'm supposed to have these things. You know what I'm saying? I was 28, just closing on my first house. And I was like, and honestly, I'm behind a little bit. I'm behind a little bit. I'm supposed to have been on property. I'm just closing on my first home at 28. You see what I'm saying? That was in my mindset. So when I explained to her, she was like, oh, I thought she was like 21. Yo, you 28? Yeah, you old. Like, that's what she was like. Oh, yeah, you old. You right. And I was just like, well, I'm not old. You know what I'm saying? But that's how that went. And I remember another young lady coming to me, and she was like, Shalonda, how do you do it? And I was like, how do I do what? She was like, how do you live this life of abstinence and this life of celibacy? And I looked at that girl and like said, who told you I was living like that? Like, oh no, boo, I just got my kicks off yesterday, homie. You know what I'm saying? And that's when my 11-year-old was 3. Like, I remember clearly the times when other women in the church thought I was living that part of the walk. My thing was, well, I'm single so that I can mingle, right? Like, I mean, well, I'm not committed, so in no relationship, so I can, have fun. And then I realized that, well, no, the Bible, I didn't grow up in the church. You know what I'm saying? I joined the church after I had my daughter and felt like there was something else I needed there to help me raise and mold my daughter. And I wanted to make sure I did it in a way where she had the best opportunity to succeed. The best opportunity to succeed. When my brother died, I kind of left the church, and I had my youngest baby, who's 5 now. And even while I was pregnant, I turned and came back to God and said, you know what? One thing I know without a doubt is I can't take care of these babies without God. I can't do it. I can't raise them the way they need to be raised. So ultimately, I made a different kind of decision to raise them that way. And joining the church did that for me. It took some processes, though. It took some time. Today I can stand before you with confidence. Living a life of celibacy is awesome. I love the peace of mind. I love looking at my daughters. I started out doing it for them. Honestly, guys, now I do it for myself. I deserve it. I'm worth it. When I get married, I will be able to enjoy those luxuries that married couples that has been created for marriage and for that union. Until then, I will walk this walk and continue to live this life. Join me, please. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to walk it alone. Let's communicate. Let's see how it is for you. Have an amazing day, guys, and keep smiling.